feel that vibe. It's empty. It's sad.
It's so weird here when it's only us two.
Yeah, it really is, man. I'm crying already. No. Dang, that allergy, man.
So have you always had the allergies, or is that just like a new thing now that you're older? Because like I wasn't allergic when I was younger. Now like I have allergies to avocado and I don't know what else, and grass.
So that's a really good question. I think it might be because my immune system is compromised as I'm getting older. But I can tell you right now that the way last year it hit me hard, but with these eye drops that I have, these are prescription eye drops. And when I took them, it's called ciprofloxacin eye drops, and they actually cleared it up fast. I was good, but I can tell you that about 2 weeks ago, I got hit with these allergies. My face started itching. I didn't have any eye drops other than over-the-counter stuff, and I suffered for a week. I thought it would go away eventually.
Yeah,
did not. So on a Thursday, I want to say it was the last week of work, I end up going to get these medications, and oh man, what a lifesaver it was. I felt better. I recovered, and then it hit me again.
Damn.
It hit me, and it hit me hard because even with the eye drops, when I'm at home, dude, like I get like my eyes get watery. And if I go to sleep, which I do often because I've been also taking Benadryl, dude, my eyes crust over and I'm trying to open them. You know when you're trying to open your eyes and they're like crusted, you're like.
You know what's funny? It happened to me about two or 3 weeks ago. I was at a job site out in Torrance, and I was covering for a colleague, and man, everything's fine. They were, building and doing whatever. The next day when I woke up, my right eye was red and puffy, and I had a lot of mucus in it. And I'm like, what the hell?
You're like, oh shit, pink eye.
Yeah, I thought I had pink eye. I'm like, I got doo-doo in my eye. But what happened was, I guess silica got in my eyes from the job site, and it just infected it. So I just had to put like these drops in my eyes for like 2 days, and then it cleared right away.
Yeah, dude, these prescription eye drops are like magic, though, man. Getting old, but I'll tell you what though, like, it sucks because my vacation's on right now. I'm on a 2-week break from work, and
only 3 weeks.
Only 2 weeks. Yeah, I get 2 weeks off. I work 4 weeks in the summer. And then I get either another 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't really, I haven't counted the dates. But yeah, that's how it works, man. Most teachers take the summer off. They don't work summer school. But dude, I need that money. So.
Oh, you're working summer school?
I work summer school.
Oh, okay.
I work summer school. And it's interesting because in summer school, I get a per diem. Although this year, I'm getting paid by the hour. So it's like about $38.68 or 78 cents an hour. So for about 6 hours. Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy, but you gotta pay the bills, and I'd hate to be without a check. Although I could save money, I have money saved, but I don't want to use it. So summers are, but I think next year will be my
plus. Also, I don't know. Have you taken summers off before?
No, man. I haven't had a summer off since college.
I don't know if I could be able to do it a whole summer. It's a long time. I get antsy.
Yeah.
Like even when we have like 3-day weekends and stuff, like I kind of get antsy towards the third day. I don't know about you.
I fall apart, dude. I need routines. My buddy Lewis can tell you this. Whenever I have an extended break, it's bad. Like I fall apart. My routines go messed up. I start sleeping later and later, sleeping in later and later, and
your cycle's off.
Yeah, completely off, man. And then motivation goes away. And then what's worse, I mean, I can imagine it's part depression because, when you get depressed, you become unmotivated. Self-care becomes a chore, like something that, in fact, that you opt out of, like taking showers even. I mean, I hate to be gross, but like that becomes like, oh man, I have to go in the shower. I have to move stuff because I don't have a lot of space in the room. So I end up using the shower to store like some of the dirty clothes in the hampers. So I put the hampers in there. So I have to move the hampers and go in there and take a shower. And then it becomes like in my mind, I play out the whole scene, and then by the time I'm done playing that scene out, it's already hours later, and I have no motivation to do it.
Yeah,
it happens all the time. And so, yes, taking breaks off, never a good idea for me. At least not without some plan or some structure. Right now, I'm a week in. I've had a few fun things I did. The last day of work, I went on a boat trip with some friends. Like, well, not, it sounds like I went like on vacation for days. No, it's like basically out in the harbor, like where you rent a boat and you go out in the harbor and whatnot. And then I've done some fun stuff. I've gone out to the bar with Lewis and Nicole, but mostly I've just stayed home and played video games, watched movies, caught up on shows. Acolyte.
Haven't seen it,
dude. It's getting so much guff right now.
Really? Yeah.
So much.
I've heard, but I haven't seen it. But then again, I haven't watched Bad Batch. I gotta watch that. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't seen, and I'm stuck watching like documentaries for some odd reason. Like I just saw Who Killed WCW. That was pretty good.
Who? Well, don't leave me in suspense. Who killed WCW?
Well, they don't. They point fingers at everybody, basically. From Hulk Hogan to Eric Bischoff to suits behind the scenes to Kevin Nash and Scott Hall.
All right. So, how do they connect Hulk Hogan to the demise of WCW? Because it's WCW that.
Yeah, WCW.
Okay. How?
Well, they do bring up a good point, and I've heard of it before. It basically, when they signed him for WCW, they gave him something that was never given to any performer before him, which was creative rights. So he had in his contract that the stipulation was he decided who would win, who would lose, how his character. He had carte blanche.
Okay.
So no one else had this. So there were a lot of times where they would be like, "Hey, we got to do this, and he'd be like, "No, we're gonna do this."
Wow.
And they couldn't say no because it was in his contract.
Now, he's typically not known for being a person who roams with the crowd. Like, I know The Rock does. It's the whole reason why, this past year he was able to switch. Yeah. He heard the crowd. He saw that he wasn't necessarily being invited in as the hero. They saw him as a villain, and so he just kind of fully went into it. Yeah. Hulk Hogan's not known for doing that.
Hulk Hogan is not known for doing that. He never has. He's always been kind of just stick to his guns. The whole NWO switch, he really didn't want to do it at first, but he was like, okay. And then once he found out that it was that good, that's the only time he was like, okay, let's do this. But once the character got stale, he wanted to go back to his old ways. But he's always had that where he basically torpedoed a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that they wanted to do was because of him. He's also, from what Kevin Nash and Scott Hall says and Eric Bischoff is, it was originally going to be Sting that was going to join. It was going to be the third member of NWO. And the fact that Hulk Hogan felt left out, he actually called Eric Bischoff down to see. I think he was doing that Commandos movie, Suburban Commandos here, and he called Eric Bischoff and told him to come out to the States, to Los Angeles. And he sat down. He's like, "So this NWO, who's the third guy?" And he was like, Eric Bischoff was smart. He's like gauging. He's like, "Who do you think it should be?" And Hulk Hogan looked at him and was like, "Well, you're looking at him, brother." And that's basically how he got the role. But even then, he still was wishy-washy because he's like, I don't want to turn heel. Then all my fans and the Hulkamaniacs and this and that. So they were so nervous that he was not going to do it because he kept on. He's the one who dived in and wanted to go into the program, into the fucking storyline. And then he was like, I don't know. So they were babysitting him in the back and waiting, like, is he going to do it? Is he not? Is he going to do it? Is he not? And he always clusterfucked everything when he was in WCW.
See, it makes sense because in WWF at the time, now the WWE, he had done SummerSlam, and I want to say it was one of the first Undertaker shows. Mm-hmm. And Hulk Hogan was like the golden goose, as Undertaker called him, and he says this anecdote where, like, the wrestlers have to take care of each other when they do some of these high moves because these are the moves that will hurt somebody's neck, somebody's back, somebody's leg, and it happens. And
that's why Bill Goldberg is hated in the wrestling world. But yeah.
So what happened was Hulk Hogan at the time said that his neck was tweaked or it hurt, and so he tells, like, it's funny when you hear Undertaker tell the story in one of his podcasts, because Undertaker has this great podcast,
amazing podcast,
and he says he exactly like you said, well, brother, he goes up to Undertaker, goes, hey brother, how's it going? And Undertaker's like, yeah, it's good to meet you, how's it going? He goes, okay, well, when you do that move, just be careful, because I hurt my neck, and I want you to look out for me. And Undertaker's, no problem, I got you. I promise nothing will happen. He goes, all right, brother, I appreciate it. So he goes off and they do the thing, and Undertaker does his move.
Yeah.
And Hulk Hogan oversells it, like if he hurt his neck. So now Undertaker's freaking out, and as he puts it, he quotes, he goes, "They gave me the chance to run with the ball, and I just hurt the Golden Goose, so I'm just devastated, mortified. However, upon reviewing the footage later, Undertaker discovered that Hogan's head never made contact with the mat." So basically, when you see the footage, Undertaker brings him back, like the neck never touched the mat. Although Hulk Hogan after that match had said, "Oh, you hurt my neck. Why did you do that?" He went to the hospital, and he ended up like Undertaker thought he was gonna get fired, that his job was over. And dude, like that is exactly some of the stories that you hear about Hulk Hogan now, where we didn't know, because at the time he's our hero.
Yeah,
that's insane, dude.
And
man.
it's funny because I never liked Bret Hart, the character. Like, just I never liked Bret Hart. Even Hart Foundation, I just never liked him. He just seemed like kind of bitchy. And then from what I'm listening to is like all the performers, all the wrestlers say that he has super respect. Everyone loves him. He's a straight shooter, and he's like very revered in the wrestling industry as one of the best wrestlers. Like, he's just a good guy, down to earth.
He's a straight shooter.
Yeah, he's a straight shooter.
You know,
and he has a sharpshooter.
Wait, exactly. Him and his brother, Owen Hart, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Everyone loved his brother more than Bret, though. Like in that time, particularly in the wrestling world.
Yeah.
Everyone loved Owen Hart because Owen Hart was kind of like the guy he was a man's man, and he was a guy who would make jokes, and he got on with everybody. He always oversold everything for the sake of the other person and not himself. And he would make jokes and everyone laughed, but the one person he would never make jokes would be his brother Bret, because Bret would then take it out on him in the ring.
Yeah.
Like he would basically like full on like close fist, like punch him and hit him. And so Owen Hart knew to just like respect his brother. And most people did. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really hear too many bad stories about Bret.
No.
But man, he was definitely one of my favorites.
No, I don't hear. The only thing is he holds grudges, I heard. But I mean, when I heard him talk in interviews, I'm like, no, he has a point. Like everything he says, it makes sense. Like I could see his point of view. The whole Shawn Michaels and him rivalry behind the scenes. Yeah, even Shawn Michaels now says, yeah, when I was young and single, I was a douchebag. And behind the scenes, he was a douchebag too.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he got married and he settled down, and now they're friends. They're not like best friends, but they're friends, and they're cordial with each other. And he's changed. He's a different man than he was back then. Like, no one stays the same. You're not the same person that I met when I was in 8th grade. I'm not the same person that I was in high school. We always change. We always our experiences change us. So I think that's what happened with most wrestlers, and Shawn Michaels is one of them.
I think what it is, it's like if you have, like at the time, if you have a person who's an asshole, unless you're protected by someone like Vince McMahon, your career is pretty much over.
Yeah.
And somehow he was able to play along with McMahon and get away with a lot of the crap that he did, to the point where he could grow into this more wiser person. Bret, on the other hand, hated Vince, and so he kind of disappeared.
He fucking socked him, dude. He hit him for the Montreal Screwjob. He knocked him out cold.
Yeah, and so would you say though that Bret Hart's career was hurt by? Because I can honestly, I remember him. He was never forgotten, but he never really beyond after he did climb back. It took him about a year to rebuild his story and his brand after the
Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah, but then at some point he just kind of disappeared. And would you say that it was because he didn't play ball, or would you say it was just his time?
What happened was it had to do with WCW. They threw so much money at him. That he took it, and that was a downfall. That's what caused the Montreal Screwjob, because Vince when Medusa went over to WCW and threw the women's belt into the trash can. He was afraid that Bret Hart, being the heavyweight champion, was going to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, so he basically, there's no way. Yeah, he screwed him over.
Yeah.
He screwed him over. So that, he was not straight shooting. Shawn Michaels was not straight shooting with him. They bullshitted him. And then he went over to WCW. WCW wanted him just because he was the
Bret
champion. Hart. Yeah, Bret Hart of WWF. So what happened when he went over? They're like, now what? I don't know. They had nothing for him creative.
Wow.
Nothing. So what happened? He got screwed over. And then they couldn't really find his spot. I mean, the people went with him because it was Bret the Hitman Hart, and the Hart Foundation, and the Hart family and all that. But he never really was able to capitalize at WCW because he was just undervalued for what he really was. And then at the end, they decided to give him as cannon fodder to Goldberg, which ended his career.
Yeah, and good that you bring back. It's a straight line to that, because he basically said in 1999 he was at Starrcade, and it was cut short when he was leveled with a stiff thrust kick to the head from Goldberg.
He got a concussion.
Yeah, and that kind of ended his career there, right?
Yeah, it did. It really did. And I mean, Goldberg was known. He's not a wrestler. Goldberg, even now, he says he's not a wrestler. But you know what? That you got to watch it. Watch that documentary, Who Killed WCW, because Goldberg comes out in it, and so does Bret Hart, and they talk about the situation.
What does Goldberg say about it?
Well, they bring him in because of the fact how they're showing the transition from beginning of WCW, like in the 80s, 90s, when Eric Bischoff first got there, the NWO affiliation, and then when they brought in Goldberg to make him this like beast that would like knock everyone out. Goldberg says basically he was the top dog. He comes in, but he has this bravado, dude, that is just so off-putting, and he's such a jerk about it, because he's like, yeah, I hurt people, but I wasn't a wrestler. And if you don't like it, tough. That's his attitude. And then he never apologized for anything that happened. He's basically saying that it's everyone else's fault but his own. He's just an asshole in the fucking series. And on it, they're talking about how he did not know, and they're showing even clips where he's like fighting Scott Hall in the ring, and he doesn't know what it's sloppy wrestling.
Yeah.
And that's why WCW made it where he would kill everyone like this with a spear, because he had no talent.
Because he looked really big, intimidating.
So he would come out like a beast, hit him, leave. Why? He couldn't wrestle for the life of him.
That's crazy.
And even when he went to WWE, he still couldn't fucking wrestle.
So here's a quote specifically from Goldberg about that thing. So when asked to speak on the Bret Hart story, Goldberg mentioned how he was very green at the time, and he was paired with the Canadian Star, and he learned a lot from him. This is Goldberg saying that. So he goes, end quote, Bret Hart, I was a baby in the wrestling business. I was in WCW. They had a rocket in my butt as far as trajectory is concerned, character-wise. Bret Hart had just left WWE, and we all know about Bret Hart being one of the best wrestlers in the history of the world. I obviously was looking for as many mentors as humanly possible. This guy he was one of the best ever, and so I was enthralled with him. I didn't idolize him by any stretch, but I don't idolize anyone. But I put him up on that pedestal as to be someone to very much learn from. They put us together, and I did learn a lot from the guy. I wouldn't trade that for the world. So, he's trying to speak positive about it, but essentially he's saying I was green.
That sounds like a publicist quote. Like some publicist made him memorize that. Watch the documentary.
Yeah, I will.
Because it's very open, and it shows his character. It really shows his character.
Makes sense.
And
this was, and by the way, this quote comes from the Tim Green podcast, Nothing Left Unsaid podcast.
Okay.
Just so in case you want to go back and listen to it.
It's probably a spin. It's probably a spin story, because if you watch a documentary, and that's new, the documentary is brand new, by the way. So he's very just unexcusable in his actions, how he says. He just doesn't care. He takes no responsibility for anything. All the injuries that he caused, he takes no responsibility. He basically says, what do you want me to do? I wasn't a wrestler. Everyone get injured. Oh, well, fuck. Shake it off.
Yeah, he really sticks to the fact that it was an accident. He says it was an accident, and he would never do that to someone.
Yeah, it sounds like now he's just trying to do fucking spin control. But
yeah, for sure.
Watch the.
I will. Dude, this is interesting though, because like we've said it before. It's a dance, right? Mm-hmm. Wrestling is a dance, and it's coordinated. You need to have a good partner to dance with.
Yeah.
Like I don't know about you, but anytime I've tried, like I can keep a rhythm and I can dance and whatever, I enjoy it. But whenever I try to dance with somebody, partly is maybe partly is me just being super awkward and weird and uncomfortable. But I always have a lot of trouble dancing with somebody because I can never quite sync up with them.
That's why I don't dance.
And so what ends up happening when you don't sync up with them, you step on their toes, you guys miss moves, and it just doesn't work. So something like swing dancing, or doing like even something like Spanish dancing with like banda or whatever. It all requires a certain kind of a certain rhythm and a connection to that partner. And if you don't got it, dude, you're hurting that person left and right.
100%. 100%. The one thing that I've always, it's a pet peeve of mine that when people say, non-wrestling fans always say wrestling is fake. And it's that quote always kind of rubs me the wrong way, because no, wrestling is not fake. Wrestling's outcome may be plotted, maybe already, predetermined. But wrestling itself is not fake. It's a sport. It's a performance that they have to choreograph to make sure they don't get hurt. You have two performers that are doing these. I can't do what they do in the ring.
Right.
There's no way I can do what they do in the ring. And they fucking practice. It's all practice. It's an art form. So it is not fake. It's real. It's just not your interpretation of real. It's not boxing, which by the way is also fake. Let's get real.
Is boxing fake?
Boxing is fake. There's a lot of money. Whenever there's a lot of money in something, any sport, when you put so much money in front of it, there's some fakeness that happens to it. Boxing, basketball, football, baseball. There's predetermined outcomes due to the money that's behind it. I'm not saying that it's like scripted, but let's be honest. You throw a few shekels a certain way, things are going to go your way.
See, I can agree with that to some point, but you know what? I think about okay, wrestling 100%. It's fake. Fake in the sense that it's predetermined.
Yeah.
When you're in the ring, they haven't really choreographed the dance, if you will.
No.
What they've done is they've sparred together to get rhythm from each other. That's the most I've heard that wrestlers do. Whenever they prepare for like a match, they will spar together to sort of like learn each other's rhythm.
Yeah.
So that when they actually perform on, they're
More
whispering
natural.
each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they can go with momentum.
Yeah.
They can. I think there's like some code for like saying, okay, my turn, and then the other person then says their turn, and so you can sort of see how it shifts.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. You could tell there's certain signs that they have to each other, either like physically, like they'll do something like they'll rub their neck or something like that, and that'll be the sign. Sometimes they do whisper to each other, but there are a few moves that they plan ahead, like, oh, I'm gonna, what would be cool if I do this and this to you, and then over here, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. So they put like these bullet points of things that they want to put in the match.
That makes sense.
And once they actually decide, okay, this is the perfect time, you want to do that? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, go and break, and then they do whatever move they had already predetermined.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's shit still goes wrong. People still get injured. I mean, look at what happened to poor Owen Hart. It happens. And in one of the last, I don't know if it was WrestleMania, but the one that Rey Mysterio, when we was the U.S. champion, fought Logan Paul, he almost broke his neck.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you saw that or not. He was going to do this moonsault or backflip from the rope and supposedly catch Logan Paul, hit Logan Paul. Well, he didn't time it right, and he was actually way off from his target. So if he would have jumped back, he would have landed on his neck.
Okay.
Logan Paul saw this, and you see his reaction because he's all supposedly dazed, but all of a sudden you see this shock factor from his face, like oh my god, like surprise, and he rushes forward to catch Rey Mysterio, and then he supposedly turns it on him, and it's clean. You can, like, most people who are not fans will not notice it, but if you look it up on YouTube, look it up. You can notice it once you start seeing the signs behind it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm Logan Paul, man. I hate him as a person.
I do too.
Like a lot of stuff that he's
a
done.
Shitty fuckhead.
Yeah, but you know what, man? I have to admit that, like, when it comes to wrestling, I've actually enjoyed his character.
He's amazing as a wrestler,
and I like how he plays to the audience. Like, do you remember the line about like Prime, where when everyone's saying Prime sucks, and then he listens, and all of a sudden he turns around and starts yelling out facts about Prime. I fucking love that. I started cracking up at that. I'm like, oh shoot, okay, he turned it into an advert for
yeah.
And so I'll give him credit for that much. Did you see that photo op he did? Because he recently had an interview with Donald Trump.
Yeah, so
stupid, man. Yeah. But we're fucked, by the way.
We're fucked.
We're fucked. I mean, let me just say we're fucked, and then hail the new overlords of our life, the Republican
Trump
Party.
Part 2.
Mm-hmm. So okay. So now that we've got the wrestling stuff, man, dude, I have been feeling better, like in terms of like my allergies right now, and I'm hoping when I go home I finally get to like catch up on some games. But dude, up until this point,
you're allergic to Doyle.
Man. When I'm missing Doyle. Where you at, bro? Why are you not here?
His sister's in town.
Yeah.
Plus, he has to take care of things now that he's moving and stuff.
Yeah, dude. By when will that happen?
July.
Yikes, man. That's too quick.
Yeah.
I am not ready for that. So I've been watching Acolyte from Star Wars. Okay. And the reason I brought that up to you is because right now there's like these two narratives that are running. One is a narrative of the audience. They're basically lambasting the shit out of it. Just basically saying that it's too woke. Now, I've watched it. I mean, yeah, sure. I guess there's some themes that Star Wars is not really known for. There are things that I like about it. I don't want to get too spoilery, other than to say, like, this is kind of a known fact, but the first few minutes has I forget what the actress's name, the one who plays
Carrie-Anne Moss.
Yeah, Carrie-Anne Moss. She plays one of the Jedi. Her character is amazing, and then things happen, and so the rest of the show is with the dude from what is it called, what is that one show on Netflix, the one that became popular a few years back, the Korean show?
Squid Games.
Squid Games.
Come on, Squid Squad. Come on, how can you forget?
Oh, dude, I don't know, man. It's so bad. So he plays a Jedi.
Yeah.
And in it, he basically they play it like some backwards film noir where these two twins, or particularly one of them was a Jedi, the other one shows up and is causing trouble for them, and you're trying to find out why. And that's the problem. We're right now currently at this point, we're only like 3 episodes in, and it's not captivating. I love the choreography. I love the visuals. I like the idea that it takes place 100 years prior to everything, but
great.
I'm just not, I don't know, dude. I'm not loving it, but I don't hate it.
Yeah.
The way the audience is, so I don't get it. Overall, right now, do you think Star Wars is dying because of this sort of stuff, or because Mandalorian was amazing?
I think it might be oversaturation at this point. Yeah, Mandalorian was amazing. I haven't seen Ashoka Tano just because I just haven't had time.
I can't believe that.
I haven't seen. Look, I don't really lean a lot towards Star Wars. Let me put it this way: I've told you I'm more of a Trekkie than I am a Star Wars guy, right? Yeah. And Star Trek Discovery just finished. I barely started. I barely saw episode 2 of this last season on Thursday because I haven't had a chance to watch it. So now I started binging it all, and I'm like on episode 5 or 6.
Is this Star Wars Discovery?
Star Trek Discovery.
Star Wars Discovery.
Yeah, Star Trek Discovery just finished. So I'm like, okay, let's watch that. And I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty good. So I'm enjoying it. Yeah, the new Trek, I feel it's kind of like the new Star Wars where it's changed. It's not like what the originator, the fathers of both series originally intended. Like I know there's things that George Lucas wouldn't have done with Star Wars. There's things that Gene Roddenberry wouldn't have done with Star Trek.
Yeah.
That I know for a fact he would be like, no, that's not possible.
Well, okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I think Gene Roddenberry would be completely against this sort of like trying to add some darkness into the Starfleet Command. They started introducing concepts of corruption and, dude, I mean,
yes
up into
and no.
Well, let me ask you this: up until like Deep Space Nine, I mean, the idea of a corrupt Starfleet wasn't really something that was very common. I mean, Starfleet was always presented as being like, or at least the Starfleet Command as being the epitome.
White beacon,
yeah, the white beacon, the lighthouse of like civilization and and
prosperity,
altruism, prosperity. And now, dude, like in Picard, like it's all like it's dark and
yes, I agree, but I disagree because actually Gene Roddenberry, he did have all that. That was his intention originally.
Okay.
But what a lot of people don't know is that for the next generation, he kind of like checked out like in season 2 or 3. Like he was like, it's not what I pictured. And they started seeding Deep Space Nine as far back as that. And he was interested in that. He goes, that's actually a great story. So they pitched him this darker Star Trek and he did like it, but they never like fleshed it out. It was just kind of like a seed that they planted in him. He was like, oh, that's cool. So Star Trek Deep Space Nine has had more of a blessing than some of the later Next Generation things.
Like, what about Voyager?
He was not around for Voyager.
Yeah, that by then he had already died, right?
I mean, he died halfway through the Next Generation. So,
man, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
So, but he had, he had kind of an outline of rough sketch of what Deep Space Nine was going to be, and he did love that idea. Voyager was the first one that was without him whatsoever.
But he would. I do you think he would hate though, like the new Star Trek now?
Yes.
Like what do we call it? The Kelvin timeline is really what it is.
Well, those are the 3 movies, and then that's the Kelvin timeline, and then the shows themselves are actually on the original timeline.
Okay. But they're
but they're influenced by the Kelvin timeline.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong. All right, so the Kelvin timeline refers to the 3 movies that came out. That were the rebooting of Star Trek.
Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto,
and it begins with the ending of the original timeline where Spock ends up dying in the first Star Trek movie.
No,
right? Or he gets blown. He gets blown into
the past.
Into the past.
Yes.
That concept was introduced in the first of the movie or the second
first movie.
Yeah.
What happens was, so it's this timeline starts where it's after everything that happens in the shows that we watch.
Yeah.
And Spock goes to Romulus to try to save it from this cataclysm of the sun blowing up or something that was going to blow it up. And unfortunately, it blew up Romulus.
Yeah, he used like this kind of like special matter, like some drop of something.
Yeah, he tried to fix it, but
ended up messing everything up.
So the villain, I forget his name, played by Eric Bana.
Love that villain, though.
Yeah, great villain. Blames him. Time travels back to the past, destroys the USS Kelvin, which was another catalyst that based the future of Star Trek into it.
Because the Kelvin is what had Spock's dad.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kirk's dad, right?
Kirk's dad, George.
Yeah.
George Kirk.
Yeah.
Played by Chris Hemsworth.
There you go.
On one of his first major roles.
It's great, man.
And that changed the whole timeline. And then I forget his name. Nero. That's his name.
Nero. Great name too, dude.
Yeah, Nero goes to Vulcan and destroys Vulcan, killing Spock's mother as well, played by Winona Ryder.
Right. Love that.
And destroys it, changing the timeline even further from the original.
Okay.
Not knowing that Spock had traveled back in time along with him and is trying to fix things. So old Spock meets new Spock, and he's kind of giving hints of the future without telling him the future, telling him this is alternate timeline. So everything we see is different.
And it is different because like things happen sooner than they should. I think they mentioned that in some of the movies.
Khan comes out in a different approach.
Right. Now, here's the thing now. Okay, and I didn't make this connection before, but I just did right now. So the main villain in the first Star Trek reboot movie, the Kelvin timeline, is named Nero.
Yeah.
And Nero is named after a famous emperor. Right. And then Genghis Khan is named after Conqueror.
Sure. Yeah.
Dude, so the connection for me is like, man, these great villains have these great names come like derived from history. So they just need to start calling every villain like, I don't know. I'm waiting for Hannibal. I'm waiting for Caligula. Oh yeah, get out of my head, dude. Yes, Caligula, dude. Okay. So back to Star Trek. I will say that I liked the Kelvin timeline. I really enjoyed it. I have enjoyed Star Trek Discovery. Really like it, but I personally don't think that it is Star Trek. I think that it's been so taken. Everything that made Star Trek kind of what the opposite of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. They
got put back in. Yeah. There's 3 series that came out now with this new Kelvin shit. There's Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek New World, Brave New World, and Star Trek Lower Decks. Okay.
Lower Decks, right? That's the cartoon.
Which is about to finish as well.
Okay.
So those two are about to finish. Brave New World is continuing, and they're doing Starfleet Academy, I think, or something. Another one is coming. And they also had Star Trek Picard, which finished as well. So, when I heard about Star Trek Discovery, I was like, I hated it. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm a purist. They had Klingons that did not look like the original with no explanation.
Right.
They had a Spock's sister that was never mentioned before with no explanation.
That's the main character in Star Trek Discovery, played by
Michael is her name, Michael. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Played by, I forget her name. Great actress.
Yeah, she came out.
She was Sasha in Walking Dead.
That's what I was about to say. Yep, she's great.
Yeah, she's amazing. I think she has a great career ahead of her. Well, and then so I watched it with a grain of salt. And the first season, I was like, okay, it's not bad, but it's not great.
Okay.
There were parts of it that I'm like, that's not Gene Roddenberry. This is not Gene Roddenberry. This is not Gene Roddenberry. Like there was a lot of things. For instance, Gene Roddenberry, which is another thing that turned him off of The Next Generation, is he used to be an army man, right? He used to be a straight shooter army guy, which had a lot of his upbringing was very military based. Mm-hmm. And one thing he really did not believe in is fraternizing, like romantic fraternizing between coworkers or army.
Okay.
So one thing I know for a fact he would not like is this whole love romance. He did not like it with Deanna Troi and William Riker in The Next Generation. Mm-hmm. So he would be turning over his grave if there was this whole thing where they sexualized Star Trek Discovery so much. He did not like
What
that.
branch of the army was Gene Roddenberry in?
I don't remember.
It must have been the Navy. And I'm going to tell you why. Because
I think so.
Think about like Star Trek, the original Star Trek, right? We're talking 60s. Dude, like Picard is the captain. They go to every port. Kirk, sorry. Oh man, Star Trek people, come at me. Come at me, bro.
I'm here.
All right. So every port, if you will, every planet, he gets off and then literally gets off with strange wool, if you will. And so, I mean, dude, that is if that is not like the story of a Navy man, you know, a guy who goes to every port and ends up hooking up with every female, that's the stereotype.
Yeah, well, close enough. He was an Army air man. He was in the Air Forces.
Yeah, but you know, he was hooking up everywhere.
Yeah,
man.
he was.
Yeah.
So which makes sense. You know, like that was that generation. That was their thing, and Kirk, it fits. It fits. That's different. See, he can have a romantic liaison, but it was always off-world. It was never with the crew.
Right.
And that's the thing, except for that one time that he kissed Uhura. But
he did, didn't he?
yeah, but they were infected, so that explains that. They had a virus. So that explains that. Space madness or some whatever.
Space madness.
Space madness. But anyway, so that's the running gag always at Kirk's. That's why when Picard came around for the Next Generation, he was smooth. He was cultured and classy.
Yeah,
that was the complete opposite of what Kirk was.
Yeah, Kirk would always endanger the crew.
Every single time.
Was the opposite. He would try to keep them safe. He would always rather do something on his own than involve the rest of the crew because he didn't want them to die.
Yeah. Well, remember the first Enterprise was a space exploration ship, right?
Right.
The second one, actually, it was the D, Galaxy Class D, which is the Enterprise D, the one for Picard. It was more like a cruise ship. It was 10 times larger. It had families on board. It had all these amenities that no other ship had, holodecks and replicators, and you could go on vacation. It was a cruise ship.
Yeah, yes it was.
That's what it was. So, yeah, it makes sense for Picard to treat it that way. It's a cruise ship. It's a cruise ship.
It's a straight line. At the in Brave, is it called Brave
New World?
Brave New World, right. In that Strange New World, thank you. They try very hard to explain like the lower tech and how he doesn't like certain screens. So that's why, or rather he doesn't like the holograms. I forget, but they try to really, really hard to explain why.
They're trying to what is it, recanonize the original technology.
Yeah,
and that's why
it's super weird.
It's very weird, but it works for me.
Sure.
And I'll tell you why, because it's campy, tongue-in-cheek, and it winks at the audience when it does all this stuff.
All right, cool.
There's an episode where it's a musical. It's fucking classic. That's awesome.
I need to watch that.
It's A Strange New World is actually really good.
So now, conversely, on Star Wars in terms of vision,
wait, is it Strange New World or Brave New World? Fuck, now you got me confused.
It's probably Strange World or whatever. But okay, so conversely, George Lucas,
Strange New Worlds, yeah.
Strange New Worlds. All right, so George Lucas has come out just recently and said, you know what, nobody gets Star Wars, and I feel like that statement is a response to what Disney has been trying to do with what's his name, the current showrunner of
Kathleen Kennedy.
Not just her, but the guy.
Dave Filoni.
Yeah, Dave Filoni. I mean, Dave Filoni clearly, I think he really does understand Star Wars.
I believe so.
And he also understands what it needs, right? I mean, he worked on Clone Wars for so long. He was part of like the conception crew. He ran ideas with George Lucas. But what Disney is really trying to say is that George Lucas mentored Dave Filoni, and then Dave Filoni is like the true mentor or mentee, the Padawan, if you will, who's becoming the master, and so is able to definitively speak on these things of Star Wars, and so the stories he tells are truly what Star Wars is. Yeah, exactly, and which they are because they're the owners of it. Let's just make that clear. But George Lucas has come out and said specifically in some interviews, like, well, recently he said, nobody understands Star Wars. I knew what Star Wars was and is. I don't know that anybody else does anymore.
I do.
What is it?
It's a ripoff of Flash Gordon and Akira Toriyama's fucking film. Akira Kurosawa's films. So he took those two elements that he really loved, the swipes from
the Spaghetti West.
The Hidden Fortress. He took the Hidden Fortress and he based that with Flash Gordon because he couldn't get the rights. Go back and look. He tried to do a Flash Gordon film, but he could not get the rights. So he said, fuck it, I'll do one myself. So hence Star Wars was created. Luke Skywalker is Flash Gordon.
Okay, all that aside, though, I mean, Star Wars is a gem, though.
Oh, it's a gem. Don't get me wrong. My issue with it is the lore behind it, which is this story where George Lucas has spun and every fucking geek believes it, which is he had this idea all along. He had this outline all along. He fucking didn't have shit. He really didn't.
There's proof that he did. He had some.
He didn't.
He had a core idea of it when he made the first Star Wars movie. It like there's literal documentation of his ideas.
If he had that much of a deep insight, he wouldn't have made Luke and Leia kiss in the second film. Let's be honest.
That's true. But the same thing happened in Lord of the Rings in The Hobbit. Okay, when Tolkien wrote The Hobbit. He wrote that before Lord of the Rings, but he created the world that it existed. He had tomes of like where the Eldar came from, where the Sindarin elves existed. Yeah. He knew that there was a half of Middle Earth that was sunk under the ocean because there was a first great war in the first great age. He knew, so he had these ideas. He had certain characters in the way that you have mythology, but he did not know who existed in those worlds, who were the prime movers, at least in terms of like like boots on ground. So when he made The Hobbit, he knew that he wanted The Hobbit to exist in Middle Earth, in his lore, and so he put them in there. He created Bilbo. He gave him a magic ring. He made references to rings of power or strange things. I think it's what Gandalf says. Yeah. And at the time, he didn't know that the rings were so powerful that really only a few existed, and the rings of power themselves would be so detrimental to society that only 9 can exist or whatever. He made and so. He knew things. He had this outline, but he didn't know where these characters would win. Because if he did, if Tolkien knew, for example, he then would have made sure to have when it came to Bilbo Baggins taking the ring from Gollum, he would have he knew that Bilbo Baggins was kind of a trickster, so he had him steal it and trick Gollum in it, but he ended up retconning that because he realized, well, no, in order for Bilbo to withstand the power of the ring for so long, he had to be good. That's the reason why he was able to live a long time after he had the ring, and they made many references to how he never changed when he wrote Lord of the Rings. Yeah. All of that was done because he needed to correct things that were inconsistent within his lore.
Yeah,
I think
he retconned. Yeah, but what I'm saying about George Lucas is I'm not saying he didn't have an outline. But for everyone to be like he had this master plan, he did not have. He made it up as he went along. I'll say about this around the second or third film of the original trilogy is when he started kind of mapping things out and putting more detail into it. But he really did not have it on the first film. On the first film, he had how can I put just a backstory, just a draft, a rough draft. Like, oh, this happened. There was something called the Clone Wars. This is what happened. Obi-Wan Kenobi used to be one of the generals. And this and this and this, but I don't think he had it where it's like, and then there was Darth Sidious, and then there was this, and there was not a dark side and Sith and Lords and Jedi and the rules of the Jedi. He did not know fucking no midichlorians, dude. That shit came up on
that he made up. He made midichlorians as a way to de-emphasize the spirituality part and try to make it coincide with science fiction. Right. So he wanted to give it a more science fiction term. And right now, for a while, Disney took that back. And now they're trying to reintroduce it. So they've made a lot of references to
midichlorians.
Yeah, they call it M count instead of midichlorians. They just call
midichlorian count. Got it.
Yeah. So for example, in Bad Batch, one of the main characters, the girl, they keep on trying to find out what her M count is, and also they make references to that in Mandalorian for sure. And then so at some point right now they're trying to consolidate the ideas because they went back to the idea of force of the wills, because that's initially what George Lucas's tome was called.
Yes,
it was called the Force of the Wills or something to that effect. And in that, he did have the idea that Jedi were connected to a force, that there was like an all-inclusive force that was neither good or bad. It was just something that could be used and could be manipulated. So based on what side, he did have the term Sith already made up. He knew who the Sith were. He knew the Jedi. He just didn't know them as people. He just knew them as a movement. I feel like he had enough that he could make a compelling story. But you're right. He started like sort of having to make these characters exist within his lore. Yeah. That's hard to do, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially I've dabbled in a couple of stories that I've made, and I always write in that form. I always write backstories to things that I never really put into stories. Takoyaki, I created this whole fucking world and these stories and things that are not really, they're on paper, but they're not going to be like said on screen. I think world building is the way to go when you tell a story. or even with music. It's world building. You have to build this backbone or this framework for you to base your story off of. It's just, I don't know. That's my 2 cents. But it bugs me how they're always like, oh no, like it's basically like Trumpsters where like he can do no wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then they shit on him for doing something that goes against their childhood memories.
Well, I think that's what's happening now. That's the reason why people are pushing back. Right now, in a lot of the new Star Wars stuff, anytime like Kathleen Kennedy comes out and says she is a businesswoman, and so she says really stupid things. She was trying to sell the idea that the person who made Acolyte, going back to Acolyte, that she had written something successful prior. I'll find out in a little bit what that was. I completely forgot. But she wrote like a treatment for what the Star Wars thing was going to be, gave it to Kathleen Kennedy. Supposedly Kathleen Kennedy said, oh, I love this, but now I want you to go back and make it more yours. Basically wanting her to inject more of her personality, more of her, sort of, I guess you can even say, I don't want to say political ideas, because then it becomes like it's a forced thing, but basically wanted it to feel more modern and what this director writer would do. So what you have now is Acolyte introducing ideas of, like, for example, ambiguity in the Force, and also introducing, I want to say that there's characters that are androgynous, and so people are really upset by this. Now, if you really, really go back if you really want to see who destroyed like the current Star Wars stuff, I would say that it all began with the second movie in the newer trilogy.
Attack of the Clones?
No, the new trilogy. You know, the Force Awakens,
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, and then the last one was
the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker. Now, okay, so I
like The Last Jedi. I did not like Rise of Skywalker.
Now I'm going to tell you, I liked it too a lot, and I defended it. But I get it now. I get why people are mad. Okay, so here's the thing: The Last Jedi introduced some new concepts, and that was on purpose. Rhys Johnson, is that his name? The director of that one? Rian Johnson. Everyone hates this guy for what he did.
Dude, I love him. He did Looper.
Yeah, he's
good in my book.
He's great, but he was bad for Star Wars. And here's why. What he did was he wanted to tell his own story, so he chucked out all the prior ideas. It's the reason why he ended up killing
Luke.
And killed Luke. Man, that's so bad. Killed Luke. He ended up like depowering what's his name, Snoke, and killed him. And that when Snoke was supposed to be like a really bigger figure than he was, he took away all of the ideas that were being introduced by J.J. Abrams, and just threw them out and said, "Now this is what we're gonna do." And how do you pivot from that? He basically told a concise story. If you remove all the Star Wars elements, it would have still been a really, really good science fiction thing. It wasn't a good Star Wars film.
You know what the problem was also? I think it was also a political thing, because you think he had an outline, right? He had all this written down. Disney could have said, no, nay, negate it. Let's stick to the original story. But Disney was like, okay, let's do it. And it's funny that you mentioned the whole death thing, because if you think about the trilogy, the first one kills Harrison Ford. The second one kills Luke Skywalker. The third one kills Leia.
Yeah.
It's like they're killing off if they make another one, they're gonna kill off Lando.
Does she die in the third movie? Like,
I believe it's the third movie that she dies.
Really? I don't know why. In my mind, I still think she's still alive.
No, she dies. Remember, she gets blown up and she's like floating in space, and she uses the last of her force power to get transferred somewhere else, and then they have the ceremony of her death because Carrie Fisher died in real life.
Dude, I've only seen those movies once.
Yeah,
I don't have I have no intention of going back and watching.
I've seen them, not as much as I've seen the original three, or as much as I've seen the other stuff, but I've seen them a few times. And I remember when I went to go see The Force Awakens, I was blown away, and I was like, "This is a great movie, this and that." But again, once the effect of the energy, the vibe wore off, I'm like, that was actually kind of crap. They basically took, like, it was Star Wars greatest hits, and they kind of clammed it together trying to make this new movie. Empire Strikes Back. They love snow. Okay, we got to make a snow planet. They love the Death Star. Okay, we'll make a huge planet instead. It took too many features of other stuff. They took the death of Han Solo straight out of what was the name of that? The Force Unleashed. video games. His death is verbatim the death that Starkiller does on that one. So it's like, okay, they even named the fucking planet Starkiller instead of it being the actual Starkiller coming out.
That's funny. I didn't make that connection.
Yeah, I just thought about that right now. But it's like, sorry, but The Force Unleashed, I think would have been a great movie. I think it would have been great.
Yeah, they should have done that.
They should have done that. And the fact they could kick that out is terrible.
Well, when you see the outline that George Lucas had for his vision of the next trilogies, man, it was going to be something special. He went out of his way to get the crew back together. He courted them for like about 3 years trying to get all the main three back.
You know what his downfall though was, right?
What's
his downfall was the prequels. Because of the fact that he was trying to do something outside of the box, and he was trying to dabble with this new technology that wasn't around, like CGI and all this other stuff, that it rubbed the fans the wrong way. And the backlash from that was so severe that it fucking made him toxic to even touch. So he's like, I don't want to do these movies anymore, because why am I going to make something that no one loves me for? He did Red Tails, and after that he's like, fuck you, I'm out.
Dude, okay. So here's the sad part. It's like, those movies are really good. I like
the prequels?
them. I love them. Okay, hear me out. Now, I've always said, for me, like whenever I think of trilogies or whenever I think of I think that everything always has to begin with the tragedy of a certain character, right? Who is the main focus, and what is their story say? So, for example, Battlestar Galactica, the reboot,
which I still gotta watch.
You gotta watch it, dude. I can't believe you haven't watched it. I have the box sets and stuff. I will lend them to you. They're on DVD, and if you want to digitize them, that'd be fantastic. But dude, okay. So here's the thing. I always say, if you focus in on who the main sort of character is and what their tragedy is, then you know what the story's about. So Battlestar Galactica, it's a tragedy of Adama, the main character played by Edward James Olmos. Like from the get-go, he's the one who has to go through the most story arc, the most changes, and at the end he loses his love, which is the Battlestar. Dude, it's such a culminating sequence where the Battlestar literally breaks its neck or back, like where the ship does its last space fold, and the way they animated the ship, like the CGI, they basically made it ripple like almost like a wave, and you feel the sadness of it, because that ship was everything to Adama. He gave up his life for that ship. Like he was married, he had kids, and he forsake all of that in order to be the captain of the ship. And when it came time to save humanity, he did save humanity, but he did it all for the sake of that ship. And at the end, he had to let it go.
Was it as sad as the Going Merry dying in One Piece?
You know what? For me, I would say yes. I don't know. Again, this is all my perspective, but that's how I see it. When I see it that way, dude, that's how I'm moved. If you look at Breaking Bad, it's a tragedy of Walter White, a man who was always destined to be a bad guy.
Oh yeah.
He was always a bad guy.
100%.
He didn't break bad. He
broke good. He basically just showed his true colors towards the end, because that was always there. You could see it from episode 1. That was always there. He just once the handcuffs were off,
right,
he became what he became, and he destroyed everything.
Yeah, and
Gus Fring had a whole career thing. Mike had a whole thing. Like, it was like down pat.
Yeah,
he's the one who destroyed everything. He's the one who made everything bad.
But that's what makes him so compelling. Is a tragedy of that. So once you figure that out, then you know your story, I think. So Star Wars, what is it the tragedy of? Well, I mean, it's the most obvious thing. It's a tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, right? Every movie is tied to his tragedy. Like, I would argue that episode 4 isn't about Luke Skywalker. It's still about the tragedy of Anakin, who has children that he's not able to raise. It's still his tragedy. And the reason why Empire Strikes Back is that you suddenly realize who is the main character of all of these movies, which is, again, Anakin Skywalker. It is Darth Vader. He is the main character. So by the third one, when he's
Skywalker
redeemed,
saga, yeah.
Exactly. So Force Awakens, man, the opportunity there to continue the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, they had it. They had the seeds of it with Ben Solo, right? They had the seeds of it. That's the reason why that first Force Awakens felt so rich with potential, because you had this guy who was idolizing Darth Vader. He literally had the helmet of Darth Vader that he spoke to.
His grandfather, yeah.
Exactly. And so had they continued to run with that tragedy so that at the end it should have been like Anakin Skywalker redeeming his whole line with his son, through his son and through his grandchildren. Or, obviously, like, it would have, that would have been the connective tissue. But Rian Johnson went there and said, nope, I want to do something different. And he did. And so he killed Snoke. He killed Luke Skywalker. He went in and mind you, these were all great movie things to watch. And it was a really concise movie. But when it comes in terms of the whole lore, it broke it. It broke the lore that they haven't been able to fix.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to do now.
I agree to an extent. I still think out of the new trilogy, I think The Last Jedi is my favorite. I still think it's the best one of the three movies.
Okay.
The first one, when it first came out, I was, oh my God, I was like, this is way better than the original prequels, blah, 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 blah. Once the new essence or that new car smell wore off, I was like, it's not good.
When you go back and watch it, do you feel, is it harder to watch because of that?
Yes.
Now, I would argue that the reason it's hard to watch is because you know what comes afterwards and it doesn't fit. It just does not fit.
It could be.
Like,
but the whole movie, each one does not fit to each other.
No.
None. It's not like the original trilogy fit.
Yes,
like they did. A New Hope, Empire, and Return.
Yeah.
They fit.
So in the prequels, the biggest problem with the prequels, in my opinion, I mean, one, George Lucas had always said, Star Wars is for kids. Yeah. It's a kid story.
Yeah.
Is what he said. And because of that, he de-emphasized a lot of the tragedies. Mind you, when Anakin turned to the dark side, it felt weird. There wasn't not enough, like he didn't earn that huge character turn. Mind you, that's what the Clone Wars set out to fix. So that's the thing that I give Dave Filoni a lot of credit for, is that he was able to really make it make sense, like why Anakin would turn to the dark side. I mean, when you think of like the individual parts that led to his downfall, the reason why is he was afraid to let go. He was afraid to let go of his mom, Shmi, right? And he was afraid to let go of Qui-Gon. The Duel of Fates, literally that whole scene where Qui-Gon is fighting Darth Maul and where Obi-Wan is watching is really like characterized. The song is called The Duel of the Fates because the idea is who's going to raise Anakin? Who is going to raise it? Is he going to be raised by Qui-Gon, who is the epitome of the Jedi? He is what the Jedi should have been, right? Whereas Obi-Wan Kenobi ultimately is what was wrong with the Jedi. He is your institutional Jedi. And so because of that, the Duel of the Fates really was what is going to happen to Anakin. And so at the end of it, Qui-Gon gets killed. Obi-Wan has to raise him, and he fails. He fails. And so what I love about Star Wars is that tragedy aspect. And they fail that story arc in the prequel, so that when it goes back to the Clone Wars, then you start to see the little parts. You see that Anakin really was this kind of tragic character who did have a lot of potential to be good, but could never meet the potential. So anyways, I kind of go off in the tangent on there, but I feel like those are the things that make up for a good story. And so I'm really excited for the fixing of this, and I do believe that Dave Filoni gets it. I want to believe it.
I hope so.
That's very.
Have you seen the meme about all the Star Wars movies are misnamed? Have you seen that video?
Yes, I have. Do you have it, man?
I have it here, but I can't play it on the air.
Play it over the microphone. So, we ain't professional.
Well, no, we can say, okay. So the first one says Episode 1, The Phantom Menace should have been called The Rise of Skywalker, which is true. That's the rise of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Right. So Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. It should have been named, come on, get to it. Sorry, Revenge of the Sith, which is true. It is the Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
Episode 3, which was Revenge of the Sith, should have been called, and here we go. I guess they're talking Attack of the Clones, which is true because that's when the clones attack.
Yeah.
So that makes sense on those matters. A New Hope, Episode 4, should have been called Return of the Jedi.
That's right, because Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan, they return.
Yeah. Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, should have been called The Force Awakens.
That's true.
That is true.
That's true because he goes and meets Yoda. Yoda teaches Luke Skywalker how to become force sensitive and hone those powers. The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And then the Return of the Jedi should have been called The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Which is so true because Luke Skywalker was the last fucking Jedi.
Oh yeah.
And then they say The Force Awakens should have been called The Empire Strikes Back, which is true. It's when the New Order comes and they fucking get the Starkiller planet and they're coming back for revenge.
Yeah, they come. They're trying to disrupt the New Order, the New Republic.
Yeah, it fucking makes sense. The Last Jedi, which we were just talking about, one of my favorite here, should be called A New Hope, which is true because Daisy Ridley's character is A New Hope.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last one, The Rise of Skywalker, should be called A Phantom Menace.
Because it's the return of Palpatine.
Palpatine comes back and he's the one who's been pulling out things. That's fucking genius, man.
That is genius, and that's how they should be called. See, I mean, fans get it. We know what Star Wars is. So George Lucas, I mean, on one hand, he's just trying to kind of maintain his legacy and his hold on it, and like to your point, because you said he had no master plan, and I think he had an idea of it, but for sure he does not hold the keys anymore.
No. And let's be honest, it's a creation that he's made. It's a monster that he's made that is way beyond his control.
Yeah.
He has no, I hate to say it, but he has no say so. Even when he had it, he has no say so of where it's going.
Yeah. Well, definitely not anymore. He's invited, Dave Filoni invites him all the time to set. You know what would be really cool? Personally, I think what would be really cool is if he directed or wrote an episode, or let him like direct one of the shows. But you know what? I don't know why they don't do that. Like they should have just let him do that. You know, he can set it.
I don't think he wants to.
No, for sure he doesn't want to, because I think it's his way of maintaining his legacy. Because right now, anytime Disney fails,
they always say give it to George Lucas.
Well, they always say give it to George Lucas. They always say that George Lucas is the one who could have saved it. That's what they, and so I personally think he likes that, and that's what he's going to hold on to.
Let's be honest, he never was a great filmmaker. Like he's a great idea man. He's a great idea man. He's not a great filmmaker. Indiana Jones series was great because Steven Spielberg directed them until you get into the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Then it's like, eesh. You know, but those are all outlines of George Lucas.
Well, what was the movie, the non-Star Wars movie he made? It was American Graffiti, right?
American Graffiti.
Now, is that, because I watched it, I don't remember it. I mean, I know the ending of it.
Was it good? It's like Dazed and Confused, a movie about nothing.
Oh, man.
That's what it is, but Dazed and Confused does it a lot better.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, a little side tangent on this. Dazed and Confused. I'm glad you brought that, because I recently rewatched it with a friend, and she didn't like it. She didn't get it. She hated it. I
could see that.
Now, I think it's one of my personally, it's one of my favorite films. It's one of my top 10 favorite movies.
How old is your friend?
They're in their early 30s.
That's why. That's why. Because you and I are from the older generation, and that movie feels nostalgic to us because even though it takes place in the 60s, 70s, it's very 80s. It has that same vibe that we had in the 80s, that nonchalant, no care in the world attitude we had in the 80s.
Okay.
People can go out for as long as they want. You know, pot was like illegal, but you can get in around the corner. There was no cares outside of your community. It's the same feel. So I think that pulls out a string that we have, a nostalgia string, without even knowing, the subconscious nostalgic string.
That's interesting, because I watched it in the 90s when it first came out.
Yeah.
And even then I loved it. And that's interesting because the movie at the time that it came out was only 30 years removed from the era, but it felt like it felt ancient even then.
Yeah.
Mind you, if you go back to 30 years for now, when would 30 years ago be? 2005, 2004? That's 30 years, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy because in 2004 it doesn't feel that much different from now. But I just recently rewatched Euro Trip, and Euro Trip takes place in about 2004.
Yeah,
that's when the movie takes place. And when you look at that movie, its ideas about Europe in terms of like the exchange rate and stuff, there's a lot of outdated stereotypes that they don't apply anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, the world that they live in, though, feels still very modern, and it doesn't feel that different from now. No. They're still using telephones, although they're not texting. They're still using the internet, although not a lot in the movie. It's not a predominant thing. You know, like the music for the most part is pretty modern and doesn't feel outdated.
Right.
So it's hard. Like when you watch Dazed and Confused, on the other hand, in 1990, it really does feel like it was filmed in the 70s, and it feels like a completely different era. So for me, that's kind of maybe the reason why I like this. So I think you're onto something about the nostalgia.
It is. It's that subconscious nostalgia. And you know what's funny though? I just saw Back to the Future again, all 3 movies, because I love those movies. And I live in Whittier, and most of it was shot in Whittier. My son goes to Whittier High School, which is what is it?
That's the high school.
Hill Valley, the Hill Valley High School.
Now I know Puente Hills Mall was the mall.
Was the mall.
But what else was like any of the neighborhoods? Or?
You know the scene where in Back to the Future 2 where he goes and sees Principal Strickland in the alternate 1985.
Yeah,
and it's all that's actually Bailey Street in Whittier.
Oh, whoa.
And I drive by there all the time. And actually, I even showed him, because I told my wife, I go, oh, that's Bailey Street. And she's like, what's that? I go, that's Bailey Street? And she didn't know what I was talking about. I go, dude, it's by the school. So I sent her a picture. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick. Because I drove by to pick up my kid from school. And I go, and that house, I know that house, the principal's house. I know exactly what house that is. So you look at, it's Bailey Street.
Oh, man. Hey, yo, Strickland. Remember?
Yeah. And there's that Strickland's house.
Dude.
And they changed the porch now to go sideways, but that's the fucking house.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And then my funny part is I was watching Back to the Future 1 with my oldest and my wife, and he's like, oh, I know where that's at. Like everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, yeah, dude, that's my school. He's like, it's so funny because they don't even hide it. That's my school.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
And yeah, when I've gone to his things in school, dude, Whittier High School is pretty badass because it looks straight out of the 1950s. Like it has not changed a bit.
Well, there's a lot of high schools around here that have that same aesthetic, like Southgate High School, which was the original Riverdale.
Yeah.
Is it Riverdale? From Greece.
No, that's Torrance.
Is it Torrance? I thought it was Southgate.
No, they look very similar.
Didn't we talked about this recently, and you proved me wrong.
Yeah,
you did.
I think the Southgate was used for Grease 2. I think that's what it was.
Okay. I
may be wrong, but I think that's what it is. But Torrance was the original, and then they also used the gym. The gym scene in Greece was actually one in downtown in LA, another school. So they used a bunch of different schools, and that's another thing that I'm actually going to do. I'm going to be going around for locations with my wife. That's
cool, dude. Like Rydell. So yeah, you're right. Rydell High was from Venice High School.
Venice High School, yeah.
And let's see what other locations. So Silver Lake. So basically, John Marshall High School was where they filmed that one scene when John Travolta's running on track when he's trying to work out.
Yeah.
So that was from John Marshall High School. And oh gosh, what else? And then Southgate was used for
Grease 2.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
also
Huntington Park High School was also used for the first movie.
Yeah.
So it says here, discover. So Grease. So Grease was partly filmed at Venice, and it was also filmed at Huntington Park High School.
And then Grease 2 was also shot in Norwalk somewhere, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I forgot where in Norwalk, but there was a scene that they shot in Norwalk because they had no choice. They had to do it, and not Spielberg. Zemeckis. Zemeckis has a thing. Well, so does Spielberg about Whittier, and they use it quite a bit in a lot of their films.
Yeah. So check it out. Okay. So just to get it on the Art Deco facade is Venice High School. Mm-hmm. The school interiors and the dance contest in the gym were all done in Huntington Park High School.
Yeah.
And then John Marshall High School was the scene where they do "You're the One That I Want," the Carnival Festival, and also the running track scenes. Those were all done there. So man, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah. They and then for Hill Valley, it's all Whittier High School.
Yeah, but of course, some of the stuff were a lot of the more major sets though were done on a set in Universal Studios, right?
Most of the interior stuff was done in Universal Studios.
That whole
Doc's house is in Pasadena.
Okay,
by the Rose Bowl.
Well, that makes sense because I remember when you see the outside of his house, it looks like one of those brownstone houses, like the ones that are known like here in South Pasadena, South Pasadena, those areas. Those are beautiful, by the way. I love those houses.
But a lot of the houses that they use are the Craftsman houses of Whittier.
That's the name, Craftsman houses, and then the brownstone. Are they called brownstone?
No, brownstone are the ones in New York.
You're right.
3-story ones and stuff. Craftsman are the ones that are.
Craftsman's are the ones that have like that where they have those outside pillars.
Yeah.
And
they usually have a closed
wooden
balcony, and then they have like siding and stuff like that. And it's a little more country-like, but modern. I don't know how to explain it. Another feature that Craftsman houses have that I love is they also have usually built-in furniture in the living rooms, like bookcases or china hutches and stuff like that. And then a lot of wood siding That's my dream, is to own a Craftsman house. If we ever make money with this, knock on wood, I want a Craftsman house. Maybe Southwest Pasadena, maybe Whittier.
Yeah, me too, dude. I would love that. That's exactly right. Did you watch? Did you ever watch Young Sheldon?
No.
Okay, so in Young Sheldon, the show is a continuation of Big Bang, Big Bang Theory, where
That's
you
why I
have
didn't watch it.
Jim Parsons is playing a young version of himself, and he's narrating it. Well, the final episode has him return, like as you get him and
Malik, whatever.
yeah, Mayim Malik or whatever her name is. She plays the wife, and so their house that they live in is a craftsman house. So when you see the outside facade of the house, it's a craftsman house, because clearly the whole show supposedly took place in Pasadena. He lives in Pasadena. Naturally, they would own a craftsman's house. Dude, I would love to have one of those.
Me too.
Beautiful houses. They're expensive as hell.
Fuck. Well, dude, in LA, everything's expensive as hell. A 2-bedroom place costs like $1 million here. It's crazy. Things are getting really bad out there. So, anyways, that was fun.
That was fun, dude. Too bad I didn't get to talk about video games. I wanted to pick your brain about Gears of War.
But you know how things go.
Yeah, no. It was good. It was good.
It's a tangent. It's a circle.
It's a straight line.
It's a tangent. We're always all over the place with this shit.
Yeah, it's cool, man. This is a filler episode to make up for the Doyle's not here and stuff. So
he had to go play host to his out of town relative. His sister's in town.
I feel like we're funnier when he's here because then you and I can antagonize each other. Right now we're totally getting along.
That doesn't work.
I know it's not funny, man. I wanna.
Screw you, Enrique. That doesn't work. But we got to get used to this too, because he's actually moving away to Minnesota, don't you know?
Well, I mean, just to bring some of the back door stuff into the front. We'll definitely
behind
have to
the curtain. Don't say back door.
I know that sounds dirty. Stay away from my back door. No, you know what, dude? We definitely got to explore, like bringing other guests on. Nobody to replace Doyle, of course, but like a guest, people we can riff off of.
Yeah.
There is a guy that Lewis and Nicole I've known this guy for years. He was a KJ at Tomcat's bar over in Anaheim, and he actually is a promoter for a local little wrestling group. And so I was talking to him last Monday. He'd be interested in coming on.
Has he listened?
He hasn't yet. I haven't sent him a.
Have him listen.
I will.
You can decide after that.
Dude, trust me. The guy would fit in. He would be all right. He's all right. Yeah. We should totally look into I'm thinking that we should maybe do like we do Ouchamania. We should also do a mid-year one for SummerSlam, because SummerSlam
is a big one.
Is a big one that leads into what WrestleMania is going to be about. The road to WrestleMania really begins with SummerSlam.
There's Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, and SummerSlam.
So which is the one?
Survivor Series is the other one.
Which is the one where the winner is who's going to be the
Royal Rumble?
Is it Royal Rumble?
Royal Rumble,
and that comes after SummerSlam.
Yeah, that comes in in November, December.
Okay.
So SummerSlam, and then Survivor Series, and then Royal Rumble.
Got it. Well, we definitely got to think of that.
And then other stuff. Today is when this is recorded. There's going to be another one too. Today's June 15th. So Clash at the Castle comes out today.
Clash of the Castle.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's just a one-off. It's when Vince McMahon started doing a lot of in-your-house pay-per-views to fill in the gaps in between the big ones, just to make more money.
Yeah.
And then after a while, he started naming them different things. There's Crown Jewel. There's
that one makes sense.
And all these other ones.
The Crown Jewel one is because of the where it's filmed in Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah. Which I really don't endorse those, but whatever.
I don't even watch them.
Yeah.
I don't care about them.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia. So anyways, hey, and listeners to Saudi Arabia, hi.
If you're listening in Saudi Arabia, how's that? How that torment? That what is it? that big rain. No, remember they got rained on like this past year, and they weren't ready for it. Too much water. It's a deluge.
Flood, glug, 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 glug.
Look.
Anything to say before we go? No.
Oh, did I just do that? Oh man, I'm so bad. Sorry.
Anything to say before we go?
No, man. Just I never have anything to say at the end. So
I noticed.
Yeah.
You don't want to shout out to anybody?
Dude, shout out to you, Doyle. Miss you, bud.
I care nothing. Doyle, you're dead to me.
You're dead.
You're dead to me.
You're empty.
Why are you leaving us? I'm just kidding. All right. Just want to say, as usual, for all things Ouchcast, this Ouchcast, the real Ouchcast, the one, the only Ouchcast, go to www.ouchcast.com. See, that's how you know we're the legit one. We have the Ouchcast.com, not fucking the Ouchcast. No, we have Ouchcast.com. And remember, never make eye contact while eating a fucking banana. Good night, everybody.
Unless you mean it.